So, what do you get when you take a good defensive coordinator, combine it with some bad play on the field, and some ugly decisions by two head coach slash coordinators? Saints Eagles week 3. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. So, let's start off with the ugly, if you don't mind, because this won't take long. As far as head coaching decisions, strategery, whatever you want to call it, Sirianni versus DA was a total wash when you're talking about basically two F minuses. When to go for it on fourth down, when to challenge, uh, throw it all out there that the top guy has to do. They did very, very poorly. No, they were awful. I'm not even going to try to sugarcoat it to the point where they were making decisions that was keeping the other team in the game constantly. This is something we've seen from Da before. No Saints fans have, would it's it's Wednesday morning when I'm recording this, going, yeah, we've seen a lot of it. I don't think anybody really has disagreed with that from a fan perspective, and even some of the media, surprisingly. Um, Sirianni going with the family of six sitting behind us all game, listening to them wanting Sirianni fired at some point during the game, and I think that started about late in the first quarter. I think it's been around a long time for Philly fans. I don't know for sure, but I got the impression they were just vocalizing it then, so much to the point by halftime they were like, I think one of them even said, "I hope Fangio's running the team when they come out in the third quarter." So it was awful. It was a wash. There's really no advantage for if one of them would have just been bad while the other one was awful, did you get a completely different game? To one or two of those bad decisions, they may go the other way. So either a bigger Philly win or we managed to squeak the game out. I don't even think we need to roll through the examples of both coaches doing this literally all game long. So we'll just leave it at that. Uh, What they did do, let's move on how they operated as coordinators. Slightly better, kind of getting to maybe average. This is the reason why I say that. Going back and painfully taking almost 2 days to kind of go through all the film in this. There were times when, as coordinators, they actually let's start off. There were times where it was just bad there too. Let's be honest. Scheme and play call. There were times when it was good. There was times when it was good, but because of poor player execution, and I think this affected us a little more than them. Um, but not to the detriment of where we were giving up points yet. But bad play, inept play, kind of kicking in at times. And then they had their version of it when they were had some drives that were going where you kind of like before Sirianni screwed up with a decision later on, but there were some that just kind of stalled because all of a sudden it flipped the other way. That's they have an offensive lineman misses a block, we get a sack, we're stuff like that. Um, the inept kind of was on two plays. Kind of was a huge difference in this game that where their awful head coaching skills were canceling each other out. Their play calling scheme and the players on the field on those two sides of the ball going against each other were kind of canceling each other out till we get to awful. There may be some debate among Philly fans about Jalen Hurts with ill-advised interception being awful, the scramble sack fumble. I'm maybe not disagree, but even if they want to put that in the awful category, it still wasn't as awful as screwing up a run fit badly and letting Barkley house one. And then the one play I broke down because I felt I kind of had to. So that's where we're going with this. It kind of wrapped it all up in one where we were awful from the start. Because the more I looked at this and broke it down, I'm about to already show it to you. We never had a chance to stop, I don't think, anything that was dialed up. Sirianni dialed up, did a good job of dialing up a play. They made the play. We lost some one-on-ones early, and I'll show you that before we even get to the ineptness that happened at the end of the play. It's just kind of encapsulates the whole game and about the fact that when it happens at the wrong time and it happened at the wrong time twice, it cost us big time. So, the play in question was um the 61 yarder that just completely broke our back. Now, the one thing that I need that was not on this video that Saints Film Room had on the Twitter account was the very beginning of this play, which was if you see Barkley in the backfield right here next to Hurts, prior to this point, or the point where he was filming, Barkley had actually went in motion up towards the top sideline, and Pete Werner went with him. Barkley turned around, came right back to where he started. Werner came right back to where he started. My exact comment, because that was right in front where our seats are right around the 30 right there. So he was running almost right at me with Werner running almost right at me. And my exact comment that nobody really heard because the dome was so loud at this point was, holy shit, we're in man to man right here, and Werner's on Barkley. From the jump, I had an awful bad feeling about this play. Proved to be right on many levels because this is one where I'm scratching my head about what our head coach was trying to scheme up. Um, One of the things that kept plaguing us throughout this game, as I mentioned earlier, bad play like losing a one-on-one, that happened in this. Um, and then we just get down to the end of it, the ineptitude where Lattimore, Harris, and Howden pull their best. Larry, Curly, Moe. And if you don't get the reference, just Google Larry, Curly, Moe, Three Stooges, watch a couple of videos, and you'll get exactly what I'm talking about. But the Three Stooges bounce into each other just as the capper of the play to seal the deal that we were basically gonna lose the game. So I mean, we're starting off with it's our 3-2-6 look, three down linemen, two linebackers, six DBs. Right off the bat, got an issue. Demario Davis was not in on this, so our two linebackers are Werner and Gay. Um, will point out three corners, three safety. So Howden's the third safety. For whatever reason, Kool-Aid McKinstry only got special team snaps. I'm thinking if we want to pull six DBs against these guys out in this situation and play man, maybe we go McKinstry instead of Howden, possibly. Don't know, but just throwing it out there, much like I would likely in this scenario want Gay and Davis on the field instead of Gay and Werner. But this whole drive up to this point, which was there was a penalty involved, a couple of short completions, an incompletion, and a sack. This is pretty much the lineup we were running, all of them, and it looked like every single time we were running some version of man. Always could not see what was going on in the back end, but that's kind of the guess I'm going with. Right here, if we're going to do the same thing and stay man, which obviously at this point we were, because they sent Barkley in motion, brought him back with Werner following. So we're in man. Showing Matthew in some type of single high. At the top of the screen, you've got Granderson on the edge, Harris lined up on Goedert. He's the only receiver over there now that Barkley's back in the backfield. Werner, which means Harris is on Goedert if you're playing man. Early in the game, Goedert hit second drive, I think. Very similar situation with Matthew showing single high, and he was lined up in the slot on the right hand side. He releases up the field, winds up one on one with Matthew, spins him around like a top, breaks to the far side of the field. That was the incredible one-handed catch for I think it was 43 yards, which let's be honest, if Hertz would have made a good throw or a better throw at least, that's probably a touchdown. The fact that he had to kind of make the circus one-handed, I think allowed Matthew to get back in the play and make the tackle. Yeah. So you're almost inviting that to happen again. Now, post game, both Matthew and DA talked about, well, we knew it was man. We were running man. We knew Goddard was going to get it. We were trying to double team him, which in this formation, Howden's got to pull out the double team. And that's an interesting look because if he runs the exact same route he ran on the play he got Matthew on, Howden's in great position. Anything to the outside, Howden can help Harris because Harris is inside position. Anything coming over the middle of the field starts to become an issue. And if it's a double cross, which it was, and Howden has to try to come into the middle of the field, well, there's going to be a whole bunch of bodies in there with really probably only two possible outcomes. One of which is the one that happened. He slams into our player, or he slams into one of their receivers, in which case we're drawing a flag. So when they jump, I really don't understand what's going on here. Top of that, Adebo is inside on the hash while we have Alante Taylor outside on the receiver. As much of a monster as Taylor has been on the inside as a defensive back at that slot corner spot all year long, I'm suddenly curious to why we're doing this, but we did it. And then it sets up at the bottom. Brazil's head up on the center. Gay is in the gap right there. I think at this point, obviously, everybody knows he's spying Hurts. Young's coming on the rush. Lattimore is on one of the inside slot receivers. I guess Adebo's lining up over to take the one to the inside of him, whatever he's going to do. And then Taylor on the outside. So you get to the snap of the ball. First thing, Taylor, he misses. I think he was trying to get some hands on him, slow him down, but he misses. So he gets a clean release off the line with inside position. No help inside, really, because Adebo's frozen on his guy. He can't get over there and do anything. And Matthew is playing single high at the top. So nothing on the inside and very little of any type of help over the top. So already kind of in a bad position right there. Hurts is actually looking that direction. But I will say this from kind of the jump, I think the only three people at this point on 3rd and 16 that was going to get the ball was they were either going to try to get it to Goedert, try to get it to Barkley, or Hurts was going to run with it. So even though he seems to be looking in that direction, luckily, I don't even think it's a thought to even throw the ball down there, because if he gets a completion right there, there's a good chance. Whoever that is, now I'm not really sure which receiver, doesn't really matter, but he probably rips off 60 yards plus, might even be able to house it for a touchdown. And this is where it gets real interesting. So now you got Werner one-on-one on Barkley. Harris had no position on Goedert to really do anything. Hurts is staring him down, going, I got the guy I really want. Meanwhile, Howden is zeroing in on Lattimore right now, who Lattimore had pretty decent inside position on the other cross, because had the ball actually gone there for some idiotic reason, um, he's in position he could possibly jump the route, but if he doesn't, he's going to tackle a guy right there, short game. We get in a 4th and long, which would have been fine. But on this, that seems to be the only decent thing going on this play right here, because already it looks like Barkley is not. I don't think he's in check down mode. I think that's a wheel route coming, which was my fear initially when I realized Werner was one-on-one with Barkley. So at this point, Taylor's still beaten, giving up ground badly. Matthew doesn't even notice. He's moving. He's sitting in deep third, but he's moving to the outside deep third instead of staying in the middle of the field. Probably pre-snap, realizing what was Werner one-on-one on Barkley. Probably had the same, oh shit, we're in man. Werner's one-on-one with Barkley. So I'm guessing he's sliding that way to help, especially when he realized Goddard's crossing. Meanwhile, the first two of the three Stooges have banged together, already sprung Goddard. The only person on the field at this point that can do anything about it is the guy, Taylor, chasing the guy that just beat him up the field. So there, Larry, Curly, and Mo have totally taken all themselves out of the play. So now we're down 3 defenders. Taylor's still chasing. No clue the ball's coming out. I'm not even sure Matthew realizes the ball's coming out at this point. He may not. Actually, Werner Barkley matchup doesn't even matter at all. We have pressure almost on top of Hurts. If some kind of way we'd have been able, because it looked like Hurts had already given up taking the deep shot to the outside receiver, which I don't blame him. I'm going to wait for Goddard too if I'm him. If we'd have somehow had something in the area where he can't get the ball to Goddard and had to pull it down. And seriously, I think at this point he's either going to look to Barkley or try to run out of there, having passed up the chance at that deep shot up the left sideline already. Maybe we're okay, but no. I mean, at that point, I'm amazed he didn't find the end zone. I really am. So I don't understand the play call here at all. I don't understand how in this situation you're not thinking um maybe 3rd and 16, maybe with that 3-2-6, playing a lot of man. You didn't really bring pressure with it. You were trying to sit back and stop something, but you're trying to do it in man instead of some type of zone, umbrella coverage in zone or whatever, 2 high, 3 high, go quarters, let's say whatever you wanted to do. And if you're a man, I cannot understand how you don't have McKinstry on the field for one of these spots and how you don't have Demario Davis instead of Werner. I don't get what you were going for or trying to do from the very beginning, other than you ran this scheme the previous plays and it all worked, which goes to the flip side of this. Sirianni, I guess, seeing the exact same personnel out there again going, and they appear to have keep going. Let me dial up a double cross for Goddard, see if we can't beat that man. Um, I don't know if he was expecting to dial up a 61-yarder by any stretch of the imagination, but probably figured if I can get Goddard in space on that cross, I can shorten it if we have to go for it on fourth, or I might just be able to pick up the yardage. Well, yeah, picked up the yardage and then some. To the point of this game, basically, and we'll get to why in a minute, well, down to our defense against their offense. They drove the ball up and down the field with some pretty big plays, and we'll break that down a little later. But our defense could make some pretty big plays in return and stop them from scoring and getting points. And again, that's behind the head coaching decisions that Sirianni, especially on the offensive side with some of the stuff he did, killed their chance to put this game away early. So he helped us out big time on that. DA returns a favor a couple of times also. So there's the ugly. Both head coaches take a big F minus. And when it came down to the play to their respective sides of the ball, it was bad. It was good at times. It was bad. Even we had some good on some of these plays. If you go back and watch them, where it was played well and somebody basically stepped up and made a bigger play, whether it was a completion by them or a run by them. And I'm not talking about the big 60-yarders. I'm talking, normal plus 10 or nearly plus 10 plays, or we knock a ball down. In fact, we had one right earlier in this drive. Um, Taylor, like I'm saying, on the outside, can't understand how it's going, but he made a play to break up a pass earlier in this drive. Those were kind of the good on goods, but they were few and far between. They really were. So you can't press them. Like, this was the best this game had to offer, was our defense against their offense. And overall, I don't think it was very good football. Again, overall, played by either side of the ball when it comes to that. The other matchups, their defense against our offense, that was pretty much bad all day long. The only coach I feel like, when you're talking head coach coordinators that has a passing grade, and it was pretty much an A+, was Vic Fangio. Um, Developed a scheme, that heavy scheme, even sometimes heavy in a 4-4-3 kind of look, but getting heavier with 5-6 man fronts. The use of his defensive tackles, he's got the two beasts, Carter and Davis, Carter especially, were monsters all game. Brandon Graham, who's kind of their version of Cam Jordan, was once one of their prime defensive line players, kind of getting up there, still come in and give you some snaps. Well, he gave him a lot of snaps. I believe it was somewhere about 38% of their defensive snaps, which is 72. So do the math, somewhere around there. And created some, we're going to see in a second, especially created some havoc and did some really good things for him in there. So they had a rotation of this philosophy that Fangio brought, going, I am going to try to get real heavy and hard with a lot of bodies to stop the run and to use it to bring pressure if they're going to try to throw out of it, totally negate their ability to play action. We're not going to really care about the eye candy. They can do all the motion shit. We don't care. But it's plug the run, get upfield if they're trying to throw it, bring pressure with some type of umbrella, whether it was man zone, man, straight zone, single high, double high, whatever in the backfield. But it was just basically the defensive backs were like, if a runner happens to get out of there, we got to get up and make the tackle. They actually able to throw the ball out of this. We're going to prevent the big explosive 60-yard play. Much to their credit, they pulled all that off. Now, this is coming from the actual NFL Fox. So I didn't do a video on this because I think they would have flagged me for copyright, but we'll just have to work with screenshots. And really, the only thing we're talking about here is this is Carr's interception. And from the jump, it looks like they did do this a few times, where they kind of showed a four-man and they stuck with it, but this wasn't one of them because right before pre-snap, you got some guys creeping up. So all of a sudden, that four-man look is, by my count, you got five with a look like a six. I think that's Zach Bourne in the motion of stepping up. And the guy that's covering our inside receiver is right up on the line in his face. So showing, in fact, both their defenders are on the line. Showing man. So it looks like some type of pressure man look, at least single high safety because you can't see Blankenship, but you don't know what CD Deuce is going to do. They could be going to a two-man underneath because what they were doing, actually, the two guys bringing pressure, one of them is Brandon Graham. So he just blew up our backup center, and our left guard came slamming through there. He is dead in Carr's face. We had Juwan Johnson not able to get in the route because he had to try to pick up Josh Sweet, which he did not do. And then Penning, that's Huff. He's on one of their other edge guys. He's got a tenuous hold on him right now when Carr's unloading this ball. And hold might be the key word because at this point that block's about ready to get beaten unless Penning grabs on and just drags him down. That was all day long as I was watching the film. It was some version of that. Now, to Kubiak's credit, I will say this. He did try some personnel stuff, was, trying 12, trying 21, 11 seemed to find some success in that. This was basically 11 because we had Jamal Williams, which is something else interesting. Where was Alvin Kamara? And Juwan Johnson. So there's your tight end running back with three receivers. The other thing on this, Carr had no check down. There's Juwan Johnson trying to block an edge player. And Williams, if you go back and watch the play, kind of got caught up in the wash. He got tied up. I think he was doing like a chip. He may have been trying to come out and may have been okay had we had another second or two. Or Carr not making the decision, try to force the ball downfield. And to his credit, he said in the press conference after, "Yeah, I wish I had that one back. Should have skipped it along the ground towards somebody, just taking the incompletion and moved on." But he didn't. In the face of some real pressure, was trying to wing a ball down the middle of the field to a guy who really wasn't looking into, I think ultimately actually was single high safety with Blankenship, who not a big name on their defense, but he's a pretty good safety on doing stuff like that of ball hawking mistakes by the quarterback, and he did at that time to end the game. Overall, Fangio A plus, Kubiak C minus at best. I think we're more in the D category. Now, again, this was part of when we're talking about even when he dialed up some good stuff that looked like it had a chance to work. It always seemed we miss a block or two. Or always seemed we were a little late trying to get to the hole, or a little late trying to get the pass off, or when the pass was actually ready to come off, the receiver wasn't quite there. It just seemed one thing after another. This is what I was talking about. Like, I think I didn't get my impression across correctly Sunday night, and it was actually kind of wrong anyway because I thought they were way more physical than us from what I was seeing. But watching the replay, um, I don't think really. They were more physical, but when you're able to look at the whole play and be able to rewind it and look at, which you can't do live when you're sitting there, going, there are plays where unfortunately on our offense, we may have 1 or 2 wins on the offensive line, but we effectively had 3 losses. So it didn't do us much good. Um, things like that. Even on the defensive side, both teams were handsy in the backfield. If you'd have had one of those officiating crews that like to call some borderline contact and sometimes some kind of hard contact down the field. I believe on this play you had one. I think Olave got grabbed at one point, if I remember right. I think this is the one. Um, but they weren't calling any of that, and they were letting it go. And this is the case of once again they were a little better at it. The receivers were a little better at fighting off our guys when we were doing it, and their guys were a little better doing it to our receivers and kind of disrupting some chances where we might have got a better chance for a better pass off to get downfield. Um, I think really what this was, the summation of this whole game, it was equivalent of a barroom brawl between 2 sets of guys. And Philly was the last man standing. They got the last big punch in. They probably got the 2 biggest punches, both late in the game. And when it was all said and done, and the dust settled, they were still standing. But as we're gonna go on and look at it, not not by a lot. Not by as much as I thought they were once I rewatched the game. But still, it was enough. And that's all they needed. They escape out of there with that 3-point win. And just to kind of talk about the we did have some good things to hang our hats on. As much as Fangio and a defensive line, I mean A plus all the way around, causes all kind of problems. One of the things I assumed until I went in and looked at it was the biggest problem was we couldn't get on schedule on any of our offensive drives to get the offense going and to get points. And we only did it a couple of times when we got points. Kind of a false assumption until I went back and looked at it. We had 10 total drives, one of which does not count because the fifth one was end of the half, kneel down to get to halftime. But on our scoring drives, first play of the drive, stay ahead of schedule, no gain. We end up moving down, getting a field goal. And if not for Moreau's legal procedure, we might have had the chance to get that in the end zone. That set us back outside the 10, and it was kind of downhill from there on that one. The next two, we did it on drives 3 and 4. Kamara 8-yard run, Kamara 5-yard run. You're ahead of the chains, punting on both of them. And then the last 2 drives we got, Carr scrambled for 4 yards. That was on the TD drive, and then he had tipped in for 6. That was the drive with the interception. So yes, correctly, most of the drives we could not get on schedule early, but actually in 3 of the 4 we did, nothing came of it. The other one, yeah, we and that was field position aided also because luckily we didn't have to go as far as they could have made us go for that touchdown. Little sprinkle is good, and that's what I was talking about. That when you rewatch film on some of these plays, you see somebody stepping up, making a play, or we managed to get a few more wins than losses, and somebody was able to do something. In some of the drives, the field goal drive, and a few rare others where we kind of didn't go 3 and out or leave the field quickly, you could see some runs. One comes to mind was Kamara had a 9-yard run on a wide zone left. Fuaga did a great job getting the edge. I think it was Brandon Graham out there, um, sealing it so he could get Kamara could get to the edge, was getting upfield. We had some wide receivers downfield doing some blocking. Otherwise, they wouldn't have went very far because some of the other times we had runs like that, they didn't do a good job downfield, and defensive backs are coming up and tackling Kamara for a 3-yard gain. But he gets out, turns into a 9-yard gain, and was close to being able to break it like we've seen him break some of those run the first 2 weeks. One of their DBs manages to finally get in there and grab him and make the tackle. And I mean, you were this close. Just split second longer, he's gone. He's past him before that guy can disengage or run around. I forget exactly what he did, but basically beat the block and get in and get the tackle on Kamara before he really went 10 plus. Um, the main thing that the Saints kept doing to get big plays, because God, they gave up a lot of big plays in that game, but they were getting big plays in other ways. To me, even though it doesn't officially go down on the NFL as a turnover, when you stop a team that's going for it on fourth down, to me, that should be a turnover. And when you block a punt, that should be a turnover. The way I look at it is when I send my punt team out there, we've got an agreement here. I'm giving it to you, but I'm just giving it to you down there and not trying to give it to you right here. So I'm freely giving up the ball. I punt it, not a turnover. But when something else happens, it should be considered a turnover. My philosophy. So under my philosophy, we had 5 turnovers. They had 2 because we had the INT, we had the fumble recovery, got 2 turnovers on down, blocked a punt. They got an interception and 1 turnover on down. And those turnover and downs, again, that goes back to awful decisions being made by head coaches where points probably should have come out of some of that. But there it is. So in reality, we were +3 turnover and really +4 because the interception came at the end of the game. So most of the time when we were leading, and basically we held them to 0 points for a half and a large chunk of the third quarter. It was because we were getting these stops. Either we were doing it or Sirianni was handing them to us. But even on the fourth downs, we made plays to make sure they didn't pick up the first down to keep the drive going. So even that's a win for us because they could have converted either one of those, and again, probably a different outcome. It just boils down to the big plays. We we managed. I mean, when you're looking at 10 plus yards a play, we got 3. Um, and I will say all to Olave, pass plays to Olave. Um, Eagles got 5. Plus 20s, we have 1 to Olave. They had 4. 40 plus, none for us. They had 3. The one-handed catch by Goddard, the Barkley run for a touchdown, and the 3 Stooges play for the 61-yarder for Goddard. And pretty much all of those, we got beat badly. We had some ineptitude and probably a little bit of scheme defensive coordinator, maybe getting us in a bad position, sprinkled with a little bit of Sirianni happened to dialing up the right call there to make it even worse and to turn into plays like that. So, I mean, to me, that's what this whole game just kind of boils down to. Um, like I said, it was a barroom brawl. It was a street fight. Um, there's a few good things for the Saints to take away, not a whole lot. But if I'm Philly, honestly, I'm feeling like we were in a couple of games where we had wins last year going, I don't know if I can feel good about this. I don't know if you can feel good about having played this game. I think the only good feeling you can come out with if you happen to come out on top. In these close games that we play, going back the last few years, we just rarely seem to be able to come out on top of them. Circumstances put you in this. They've got to figure out a freaking way to win these games. They have to. It would be better if they could figure out a way to stay out of these games altogether. But I will leave it at this. On paper, I still think Philly was the better team. I thought we could run the ball on him. And I think Fangio figured out that's the one thing we can't allow to happen. We would willingly give up anything else except running the ball, the Saints running the ball, or blowing us up over the top. We'll give them anything they want to get in the middle of all that. And on top of that, we could make the better one-on-one plays to make it happen. There's your game. Real quick, puck injuries. By now, everybody's heard the 6-8 on McCoy. As an offshoot of that, I heard Atlanta's also lost their starting center. They had to put him on IR yesterday. So whatever that means, there it is. Nick Underhill yesterday also sent a tweet out that basically said lots of injuries on Sunday's game. To kind of look out for tomorrow's injury report when they have to release their first practice injury report Wednesday afternoon. He was kind of alluding to we may have some broken hearts. So I don't know what that means, but segue into the injuries of the game. That's the last thing we really haven't talked about, and let's kind of play into what's about ready to happen in Atlanta when we get to the end of the week and we start covering that. The injuries were a weird sense of both teams could go. Um, we didn't have Taysom Hill. They didn't have AJ Brown. Make your case why the game would have been different. I can't argue. The game definitely would have been different. It would have affected both teams differently. It would have affected their opponents differently. Um, Hard to pin down based on how much really bad football and bad coaching we saw in the game itself. I don't know. Losing the players during the game, again, I think it was a wash. McCoy hurt, and losing McCoy long term is going to be extremely painful. But at the same time, they lost both during the course of the game, both starting offensive tackles and their true, real threat guy at wide receiver that they had left. Again, any combination of those guys don't leave the field or don't leave the field for very long and end up coming back, the game changes. How much? I don't know. But the ones that happened in game, you're talking about a 3-point game. So any one of those four guys, their three or our one, may have just been the difference to either Philly gets an easier win or we're able to scrape it out. I mean, you're looking at that last play from Carr with that pressure up the middle. McCoy's still in there. I don't know what would have happened all game long, but odds are we probably win a few more of those one-on-one, especially when you're thinking about Lucas Patrick's a better guard than he is center. So he's back in position. So now you kind of better with those two up front, more of a chance to kind of hopefully work through all those 5, 6 heavy fronts that they were throwing at us that we just struggled with all game long. So they got it. That's the last time we're going to talk about that one. Um, I, we'll just have to see after today's practice, tomorrow, how it's all shaping up on Friday, what we're going to be going into Atlanta with. But it doesn't matter. It's the NFL. Injuries happen. We've used that for excuses for years, and I always felt like this is why you build a roster. This is why you develop players. Everybody in the NFL goes through this at some point. And it just gets to the point after a while. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to hear about it. That's where I've been at for a large part of this season. But guys who are ready to go are going to have to step up and and do their job. Next man up, whatever you want to say. Got to grind through this, get through it, get back on winning track, and it's a big one in Atlanta that we got to go in and win. So just give me a thumbs up for having to endure watching film and all on this all over again for the last day and a half, whatever it was. I honestly, I need a little break from the Saints for a little bit, like the rest of the day off, maybe tomorrow morning. But then hopefully beat out the system. Let's hope we can get some positive stuff going for Atlanta. We really need to go in there and get a win. First time here, please go ahead, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification. Should be back around Friday evening, Saturday morning. Try to break it down, figure out what the crap's going to go on in Atlanta. And do we have any chance to pull it out? Because we really, really need to. So, till I see you then, I'm Tim. Peace out. Who dat?